He's gonna do this.
No, I don't think so.
Figured
Okay. Do you want the video?
it's on.
And start in 5 minutes.
You should mute it.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Sound check?
I can
Yep.
hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm going to start the meeting recording now, and then we're going to wait a few minutes before we get started to let some other people in.
Recording in progress.
Okay, one more time, just a sound check.
You're good.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a little bit after 6. Welcome. Happy New Year. We are very excited tonight to share information on the feedback we received on the San Diego County Emergency Operations Plan. And my name is Nick Zubel. I'm with the County Office of Emergency Services, or OES, and I'm leading this effort in partnership with county departments, state and federal partners, food system stakeholders, community-based organizations, tribal governments, access and functional needs advocacy organizations, and the general public. So it truly is a collaborative effort, this plan update. So we really appreciate that you being here tonight to learn more about the findings and the recommendations. From our team, we also have Sofia Gonzalez, who is co-presenting with me, and Nick Flores, who will be monitoring the chat. Before we get started, I will turn it over to Sophia to spend a few moments on the Zoom features we will be using this evening to help everyone stay engaged.
Thanks, Nick. Hi, everyone. If you'd like to ask a question or share feedback, please use the raise hand feature.
Turn
During
it
the
over to
discussion, you
Sophia
can
to
click
spend a
the
few moments
react
on the
icon
Zoom
at the bottom of your
features.
screen to
We will
raise your
be
hand. Once you're called on, please unmute yourself to speak. In terms of meeting participation guidelines, we're really excited to have you guys here, and we want to make sure that we can respond to as many questions and comments as possible, both in the chat and during the discussion. So please hold on to any comments or questions you have until the discussion period at the end of the presentation. You can also ask questions or share feedback using the chat function. To open the chat, simply click the chat icon on the bottom of your screen. There's also a closed captions option, which will display the spoken words on your screen. So depending on what's visible on your Zoom screen, you may need to click on the 3 small dots first to see the tools. If you're joining from your phone, you'll find the icons to raise your hand, unmute, and use the chat at the bottom of your screen. You may also need to tap on the 3 dots to see additional options, but I'll pause here to see if anyone has any questions on the Zoom tools in the chat. Cool. I'm seeing none, so I'll go ahead and turn it on over to Nick.
Thank you, Sophia. Before we get into the agenda and meeting purpose tonight, we wanted to start with a brief overview of who we are at County OES. County OES, or Office of Emergency Services, is the county department responsible for helping communities prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters, as well as mitigate against those hazards. We work with our local partners to coordinate emergency activities and ensure that resources and information are available when they are needed most. Our key responsibilities include coordinating emergency response efforts across cities, agencies, and partner organizations. While the county's primary jurisdiction is the unincorporated area of the county, our office also supports emergency management functions across the 18 cities in our region. We also share timely and accurate information with the public, first responders, and decision makers. We develop plans and conduct training and exercises to ensure a unified and effective response. We support recovery operations to help the community access disaster assistance resources. We build partnerships with government agencies, first responders, schools, businesses, healthcare, and community organizations. And we also create and share preparedness resources to help residents and communities get ready before a disaster happens. So today's meeting, again, thank you again everyone for joining us, is to highlight the key findings and feedback that we received from the community on the emergency operations plan that was during the initial public comment period last fall. We also will be presenting the recommendations that were developed from that community feedback that can help shape the plan update. And then we'll review next steps, summarize action items, and provide a timeline and expectations for upcoming phases and deliverables. So here's a look at our agenda this evening. We'll start with a brief overview of the emergency operations plan, explaining the purpose, the structure, the key components of the plan, and then we'll highlight how we solicited that feedback from the community, how we also collaborated with our county partners. Then we will highlight community feedback and how that input can help shape the next plan update. Towards the end of the meeting, we'll set about 20 minutes for open discussion, feedback, and questions. And then to close, we will review next steps, including how you can provide additional feedback after this meeting. The Emergency Operations Plan is a regional framework for responding to major emergencies and disasters. It specifically outlines the county's roles, authorities, and responsibilities, but it also provides that framework for our local jurisdictions and our partners during incidents that require county coordination or assistance. Our office coordinates the update of this plan every 4 years, and it is brought to the Board of Supervisors for adoption. The plan was last adopted by the Board of Supervisors in September of 2022. Both the county's regulatory ordinances and the State of California's Emergency Services Act require that the county establish and maintain this plan in order to be eligible for state and federal disaster reimbursement funds. The plan specifically identifies the components of the county's emergency services organization, and it describes the overall responsibilities for protecting life, property, and the environment. The plan consists of the basic plan and 16 annexes, each covering specific emergency functions of response agencies and organizations. This is a look at our timeline for the plan, or our journey of where we have been and where we are going. In April of last year, the county initiated the kickoff of the plan update and solicited initial feedback from county departments. From September to October of last year, the county initiated the initial public comment period and invited the community to provide direct feedback on the plan. The draft plan was posted on the Engage San Diego project website. From October to November of last year, the county launched a community engagement survey to collect additional perspectives from community-based organizations, tribal governments, access and functional needs advocacy organizations, food system stakeholders, and the general public. Between now and February, the county will integrate initial community feedback into the final draft plan. A final draft public comment period is planned for March of this year, and the final draft will be posted on the Engage San Diego project website. Final community feedback will be incorporated into the plan in April, and the final plan will be presented for approval to the Unified Disaster Council in June, followed by Board of Supervisors adoption in September. So the county developed a community engagement plan that provides a roadmap for how the community will have opportunities to provide input and help shape the next plan update. We aim to engage the community through the following 4 objectives for community engagement. We collected data on gaps in services, response capabilities, and existing resources. We read through interview transcripts, survey responses, direct feedback on the plan, email responses, and meeting notes. We evaluated the community's understanding of emergency response procedures. We ensured that the plan update reflects community priorities and that the community feels both heard and represented. We identified themes from the feedback from what we heard from the community and have developed relevant recommendations. And finally, we leveraged existing opportunities such as stakeholder meetings and networks to maximize participation, reduce engagement fatigue, and ensure targeted input from key populations. Please note, this presentation provides key recommendations across major themes, but does not cover all of the recommendations. Additional recommendations were developed. However, not all of those recommendations were actionable within the emergency operations plan, but will be carried forward for future planning efforts. The community conducted numerous engagement activities to get your feedback. We heard from the community across several platforms, including in-person and online. From the community survey, there were a total of 127 survey responses. Approximately 841 open-ended comments were provided from that survey. And the survey asked specifically respondents to share their lived experiences, perceptions, and knowledge related to preparedness and response. From August to September of last year, our office, in collaboration with the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Justice, delivered presentations to 21 community partner meetings, which included representation from community-based organizations, food system stakeholders, tribal governments, access and functional needs advocacy organizations, and the general public. In addition, our office, in collaboration with the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Justice, facilitated 2 tribal informational sessions in October of last year. We had significant tribal feedback related to the plan update and to ongoing coordination needs. Both the community partner presentations and tribal informational sessions were designed to introduce the update process and solicit feedback on the plan. We had 1,700 visits to the Engage San Diego project website, the county's digital engagement platform. 15 participants provided their feedback on the plan through email. Our office also used a tool called Conveo to collect direct feedback on the plan. There were 23 responses through this tool, which was hosted on the Engage San Diego project website. From the community survey, this question asked participants to identify the category that best represents them or the group they are responding on behalf of. Nearly 72% out of the 127 survey respondents were members of the general public, followed by nearly 13% from community-based organizations, nearly 9% from other, 3% from tribal governments, 2% from individuals with access and functional needs or their advocates, and less than 1% from the business sector. Now I will turn it over to Sophia to present on the findings and recommendations.
Thank you, Nick. Through our broad community engagement, which included surveys, stakeholder meetings, tribal information sessions, digital platforms, and direct feedback, we heard diverse perspectives from the general public, community organizations, food system stakeholders, tribal governments, access and functional need advocates, and others. The feedback highlighted both what's working well and critical areas for strengthening the plan to better serve everyone in San Diego County. Based on what we heard, 6 major themes consistently emerged. These themes represent the community's top priorities. Please note that the recommendations are not reflective of all the feedback received on the plan. These were the common themes that the community pointed out. Plan updates will also reflect current policies and changes in operations, including responsibilities, advancements in capabilities, and resources. In the next slide, Nick and I will walk through each theme in more detail, along with key recommendations that will strengthen the plan moving forward. The first major theme we heard from the community was the need for redundant, accessible, and trusted emergency communications. This means making sure people receive emergency information in more than one way, not just through smartphones, social media, or internet-based alerts. Community members emphasize that messages need to be clear, easy to understand, culturally appropriate, and delivered quickly, especially during fast-moving emergencies. We also heard the importance of reaching everyone, including seniors, people experiencing homelessness, individuals with access and functional needs, rural residents, and people who might not speak English as their first language. And lastly, ensuring timely information is sent to the public on evacuation statuses, available resources, and when it's safe to return home. To better understand how people prefer to receive emergency information, we asked survey respondents which communication channels they rely on the most. This chart highlights the community's preference for receiving emergency notifications. It's drawn from our community survey of 127 respondents. Respondents could select multiple options, so these percentages reflect how many people chose each channel. It's not a strict ranking of priority. The three most selected channels were SMS text messages from opt-in systems like Alert San Diego, which 100 people voted on. About 85 people selected government-issued text-like alerts, such as wireless emergency alerts sent automatically to mobile devices in an affected area. Around 82 people selected push notifications from mobile apps like Alert San Diego. So this data shows a clear community preference for fast, direct, text-based alerts delivered through both opt-in tools and automatic wireless systems. So this is a great insight that already validates some of our current strengths. In the next slide, I'll walk through the key recommendations the community provided to strengthen emergency communications in the plan. Community feedback informs several key recommendations to strengthen emergency communications in the plan. These recommendations focus on describing alternate alert and warning notification methods that do not depend on smartphones or internet access, describing culturally appropriate alert and warning methods, and describing the communication channels used to inform the public about where to access resources and when evacuations are lifted, so it's safe to return home. So overall, what we heard is that strong emergency communications are foundational, because alerts and warnings are often the first step that enables people to take protective action. Building on that, the next major theme the community raised was evacuation planning for rural and access and functional need populations. What we heard from the community was the need for more tailored evacuation planning to ensure everyone can leave safely and efficiently, especially in rural areas and for individuals with access and functional needs. Community members raised several challenges, including information about evacuation routes, specifically limited evacuation routes in rural communities, transportation barriers for people with mobility or medical needs, and the importance of planning for licensed care facilities that may require medical transport during evacuations. We also heard that pets and in some cases, livestock may play a major role in evacuation decisions. In the next slide, I'll walk through the specific findings and key recommendations that emerged from this feedback. So this chart shows evacuation-related concerns raised in the community survey. Traffic congestion and road safety were the most frequently cited concerns, reported by nearly 109 people. 77 people reported not having enough information on what to do or where to go. 72 people reported caring for pets, 67 reported not having access to critical medical equipment or medications, and 65 people reported limited access to transportation. Together, these findings highlight that evacuation challenges are not just about moving people out, but also about road conditions, clear information, mobility, medical needs, and pet considerations. Community feedback informs several key recommendations to integrate the evacuation needs of rural communities and access and functional need populations into the plan. These recommendations focus on describing transportation options for individuals with access and functional needs, describing how information about evacuation routes and traffic conditions is communicated to affected communities, and including planning considerations for areas with limited access and strategies to mitigate traffic congestion. In addition, as well as integrating pet rescue options into evacuation planning. The next theme focuses on shelter and human services. Community feedback emphasized the need for both congregate and non-congregate shelter options that are accessible, ADA compliant, and clearly communicated, especially shelters located close to evacuated areas. Community members also highlighted the importance of support services at shelters, including backup power, medical and behavioral health support, and transportation assistance to and from shelter locations. In addition, people stressed the need for co-located pet sheltering and clear information on how and where to access care and shelter resources. This chart shows preferences reported in the community survey. About 40% of respondents indicated that they would stay with family or relatives if displaced. Nearly 20% said that they would rely on hotels or motels, while about 16% reported they would use a public emergency shelter. These findings show that while many people prefer to shelter with personal networks or in temporary lodging, a significant portion of the community still expects to rely on public sheltering options. So this reinforces the need for accessible, well-supported emergency shelters. Now, this chart shows how respondents prefer to receive emergency information about available resources, such as shelter and food during and after an emergency. 101 people indicated a preference for SMS or text messages. Social media was also widely used, with about 70 people indicating it as a preferred source. Traditional media continues to play an important role as well, with nearly 62% preferring TV or radio, and about 52 people indicating a preference for mobile applications. Overall, the data shows that people rely on a mix of communication channels to access resource information, reinforcing the importance of using multiple methods to reach the community. Community feedback informs several key recommendations to strengthen care and shelter operations in the plan. These recommendations focus on describing transportation options to and from shelters, particularly for individuals with access and functional needs, including planning considerations for alternative shelter options to ensure accessibility and proximity to evacuated areas, describing how information on shelter locations and available resources is communicated to the public, and finally, describing emergency shelter options that can accommodate people with pets. So now I'll turn it back over to Nick.
Thank you, Sophia. The next major theme we will be discussing is food security and feeding. And as mentioned in previous slides, this is the first time that we've engaged food system stakeholders in this plan update. And so a lot of our engagement was also in meeting with different food stakeholder groups throughout this process. Community members highlighted the importance of having food and water distribution locations that are accessible, well communicated, and located close to impacted neighborhoods. We also heard from stakeholders the importance of clear information on where and how to access community food programs, local food assistance, and distribution sites during an emergency. Specifically, we heard the need for culturally and dietarily appropriate food options, including considerations for individuals with medical or food-specific dietary needs. And this was specifically for distribution sites. We also heard the importance of mobile or home delivery support options for individuals who cannot easily travel to a distribution site. And overall, these findings point to the opportunities to better strengthen mass feeding operations and coordination during a large-scale disaster. In the next slides, we'll walk through some specific findings and recommendations that emerged. From the community survey, this question asked participants to identify potential barriers to accessing food during emergencies, and respondents were asked to select all challenges that apply to them or the communities they represent. So as you can see here on the chart, 91 people reported closed grocery stores as a major barrier to food access during emergencies, while 68 people reported limited income or lack of available cash or other funds to pay for food. 58 people reported lack of timely notifications and accessible information about free or emergency food resources, while 54 people reported lack of transportation to food distribution sites. So in summary, looking at this data, it shows that access to food during emergencies may be constrained by infrastructure, economics, information, and mobility. Community feedback informs several key recommendations to strengthen food security and feeding operations in the plan. These include describing better how to coordinate with the county, specifically food banks, food distribution sites, and charitable food organizations, incorporating barriers to accessing food during emergencies into planning assumptions and considerations, and including planning assumptions and examples that show how food security and feeding concepts can be operationalized in the plan, such as points of distribution planning, communication approaches, alternative delivery options for people who cannot access distribution sites, and considerations for providing appropriate food options. The next major theme was tribal sovereignty and tribal emergency management practices. From the tribal informational sessions, the interviews, and direct feedback on the plan, tribal governments and tribal organizations emphasize the need for strong tribal county government coordination during emergencies, as well as recognizing tribal sovereignty. Other key findings included ensuring reliable, redundant communication options for tribal governments, providing clear information on how and where to access available resources during emergencies, and providing transportation assistance for tribal elders and tribal members with access and functional needs during emergencies. Tribal governments and tribal members also indicated that cultural literacy or awareness training among shelter staff, historical trauma related to displacement, and partnerships with trusted tribal serving organizations should be incorporated into county-operated shelters for tribal communities. From the community survey, we also learned that tribal government's first preference is to host shelters in coordination with the county, and their second preference is to operate independent emergency shelters. As you can see here, feedback informs several key recommendations to both recognize tribal sovereignty and to integrate tribal emergency management practices into the plan. These recommendations focus on describing coordination with tribal governments during evacuations, describing accessible transportation options for tribal elders and tribal members with access and functional needs during evacuations, describing culturally appropriate accommodations in county-operated shelters for tribal communities, describing reliable, redundant communication options for tribal governments during disruptions, and describing resource information sharing options for tribal communities. The final major theme was lifelines and critical infrastructure continuity. Community members emphasized how many essential services depend on electricity, including cell and Wi-Fi connectivity, well and water septic systems, refrigeration for food and medications, and access to fuel. We also heard an expectation that these disruptions require redundant support, especially for communities that may experience longer power outages or have limited access to resources. People highlighted the importance of community resource centers operated by SDG&E, backup generators, and mobile cellular systems. Community members also stressed the importance of maintaining water and sanitation during power outages, including potable water delivery when wells fail, and support for septic and water systems in rural communities and on tribal lands. Overall, these findings underscore the need to strengthen continuity planning so that critical lifelines remain available and communities have reliable support when infrastructure systems are disrupted. Community feedback informed 2 key recommendations to strengthen lifelines and critical infrastructure continuity in the plan. These recommendations focus on including planning considerations for potable water options and sanitation solutions for affected communities during power outages, and more clearly describing the capabilities, resources, and services offered by SDG&E's community resource centers during public safety power shutoffs. We would now like to open the meeting for questions, hear your feedback, and hold discussion. We have allotted 20 minutes for question and discussion, so please limit your comments to 2 minutes each. Please raise your hand or use the chat feature to share your thoughts and questions. And if we're not able to get to all questions this evening or comments, we will be writing them down and we'll follow up with a meeting summary. And I see, excuse me if I mispronounce your name, Mamad. You're welcome to come off mute.
It's just my computer name, Mama Dog.
Oh,
Once this plan is put in place after, I believe in September, when it goes before the county, would there be like training sessions to come to like civic associations or planning group meetings for you guys to go over this with the chairs and the members of those committees so that they can pass that along to their community?
that is a great question. And as part of this plan update process, there is an ongoing maintenance and a training schedule that will be developed where we will be sharing with our partner organizations and with our county departments, the changes that have been made and how this plan can be operational.
Nick, I'd also like to have Mila speak a little to some
Yeah.
community preparedness if we can as well.
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mila Barker. I'm an emergency services coordinator with the County of San Diego Office of Emergency Services, and I work primarily in community engagement. While the emergency operations plan is a framework to tell the story of the response capabilities of our partners across the region, the Community Outreach and Engagement Division does provide a framework that supports with preparedness, materials, education. We also have access to a variety of partners and stakeholders across the region that provide tailored education in the area of preparedness, such as your local community emergency response teams. We also have American Red Cross partners. And then we're also working through our Live Well San Diego partnership to engage a variety of their network as well. And so we just urge the public to get involved and also reach out to our office, and we'll be happy to connect you with the appropriate party to support your needs.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Mila. We had a question from Robert Johnson. Yes, welcome.
To me that everybody understands our comms and connectivity between resources not in our region and our ability to communicate with them to get resources to us. And so, just so I verbalize it, I said Starlink as an example. I'm sure there's other ones. I'm not talking about buying everybody's Starlink. I'm talking about having satellite city locations so everybody could get to an area where one is available. Then when I was covering the Border Fire 2, we had a situation where the online maps weren't necessarily accurate. Like some of the streets were showing areas that weren't closed or were closed but weren't showing closed. And so a way to organize routing purposes or plans of how people exit or enter different areas was something I was bringing up with the city as well, right? Because Chula Vista would need to voice their concerns into these matters. Everybody should. And then just to touch on the Red Cross situation real quick, was it was heavy rains. It was hard to get homeless people there. There's a lot of situations where it was Southwestern College, and yes, that is a good spot, but getting the homeless from the trolley station to there seemed to be the issue, right? And so, like you guys said, different transportation issues. But I just want to make sure I speak up for people and say, in an emergency, we want to look out for each other and do what's best. So I appreciate you guys holding this, and thank you for my time.
Thank you for your feedback. We appreciate that. And that aligns very well with the presentation and the recommendations to enhance reliable, redundant communications. So thank you.
Nick, I'm going to go ahead and drop our general email address in the chat with Mila speaking to the community outreach and preparedness events. If anyone's interested in having one of those hosted in their community, please just go ahead and send us an email and we'll find the appropriate partners to coordinate with, but I will put that in there now.
Thank you, Ashley. And I see another hand raised. T Green.
Thank you, Mr. Zubel.
Good evening.
So, the one big issue that we've seen with the public safety power shutoffs, this is not necessarily County OES's wheelhouse. However, we've seen the backup batteries die on the cell phone towers. So normally we may be able to get information, but when AT&T and Verizon and those guys don't have enough backup batteries for their cell phone towers, then we are completely shut off from the world. So we cannot do a 911 emergency call if we have a medical emergency at home. We can't get information about that reverse 911 call to evacuate. And so that is another big issue, in particular with the PSPS events. And that's not something SDG addresses, right? They've got their CRCs. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I've seen that multiple times. Thank you. And thanks everybody for showing up. That was on my email list. Bye.
Thank you, Teresa.
All right, so if we have folks who have come off mute and are all set with questions, I will, Nick, throw a question to you that's actually coming from our chat. We had some folks ask about designated evacuation routes being mapped and how we can provide those routes to the public.
That's a great question. And as Sophia presented on some of the evacuation recommendations, one of those recommendations or comment was around evacuation routes and how do we better share that information, during an emergency. So that is something that we appreciate that comment because that is something that can be under consideration as a solution.
Thanks, Nick. And then I'll just share for the group. Sean, I see you've asked about how often our plan is updated, and I see just to share with the group so everyone knows that Sophia responded, the plan is updated about every 4 years to make sure it's current and relevant. Let me see if I missed any other questions from the chat. I think someone is looking for a link to reach out to, so Ashley's posted that one. Sorry, I'm joined by a furry friend here. And Robert, I see you have a couple more questions. Questions about phone lines working during a power outage. For that one, I can take that one. Obviously, it will depend on the disaster, but it's still a great question on how we can get those lifelines and similar to what T Green brought up, which is making sure that we're plugged in and accessible during those disasters. So again, it'll definitely depend Our number one goal, though, is to make sure that the power lines are working, power is to folks, and we can reach you when it's an emergency.
So I saw a comment too about ham radio capabilities, and that actually was a recommendation that we did receive from the community about acknowledging those capabilities within our communication annex. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
We have another question in the chat from Vanessa. She is asking about considerations or support plans that we're developing or have developed for seniors with disabilities who might live on a higher floor or something above ground floor. Nick, can you talk about anything related to access and functional needs that we might be considering for this plan?
Yes. So access and functional needs, as you know, is integrated throughout the plan. We have 16 functional annexes. So, for example, to foster that whole community approach, we acknowledge those needs within the mass care and shelter plan, evacuation, animal care, public information, etc. But your specific question was around support plans, and as you know, depending on where that facility or apartment building is located, that support can be provided to help develop that plan. So if it's, in a city, then it's a partnership with our cities. If it's within the unincorporated, then it's a partnership with, our office and other county departments. But that will be noted as a planning consideration in these plans, because as you may know, within each annex, as far as the structure of these plans, there is a planning assumption considerations component, and that kind of drives then the operations and response. So thank you for that comment. And I see Teresa.
So Nick, and everybody, about a year ago, I was at the Listos Disaster Ready Summit in San Diego County, and we were having, Listos, California, out of the governor's Cal OES office. And I was having a conversation with apartment managers or facility managers for really large senior housing complexes, and they have 500 residents. And so we were talking about evacuations, and they have those stair chairs, but they've been told they can't use them or practice with them due to liability. So somehow someone, I know that's outside your wheelhouse, but that's the property owners and management's responsibility to not leave people behind. And there's a training PowerPoint I can share with you on how to use those stair chairs. But I straight up said, what is your liability if you leave somebody behind? So just something to consider, that it's the property owners and managers' responsibility to help them evacuate and not rely maybe on the neighbor or somebody or you guys to do it. Just throwing it out there.
Thank you, Teresa, for sharing that resource. Robert Johnson, I think I see your hand up again.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to go off of what was just mentioned in the idea that the Gaylord Pacific was just built in Chula Vista, and the the freeway entrances from H Street to J Street, in the next coming years, considering the port project and other things, further outlook to what emergency plans look like compared to like what they look like now, and pre-planning for these developments already coming. Another thing I'd just like to note is that specifically in Chula Vista, we're near the border. And I didn't hear any mention of the border, even though it's a huge part of our city. And I'd say federal agencies too, but that's a pretty obvious one. But I think the border is something to consider when we're trying to advise even tourists, right? That come here and want to enjoy our city, and what plans or how does the local tourist board or the outreach done to that prepare people who are not from San Diego?
Thank you, Robert. That's a great comment and question, and just for informational purposes, we do have a cross-border working group that collaborates with our partners in Mexico and discusses cross-border incidents and sharing information during times of emergency. So that is a comment that we can bring forward to that work group. We appreciate that. To follow up with Vanessa in the chat, thank you for clarifying your question. And I wanted to share that we do, each city within the county has their own emergency operations plan. And so we ensure that our county plan sort of supports or supplements those local plans. So we can connect offline too to get you in touch with Escondido's emergency management office to discuss this further. It's a great question. Karen Clay.
Hi, Nick. So I put a comment in the chat that I've brought up before that it would be very wise, I believe, to have a system set up, just an online portal that can be activated quickly, that allows victims to tell us where they are. Because during the floods, and with people moving between the hotels, we never knew a really good count of where people were, so we could feed them. And that was a real major issue for us.
Thank you for sharing that. No, that's very helpful. We will document that as an option as far as informational sharing purposes and resources. Mamad, sorry if I mispronounced that again.
That's okay. Mama Dog. Just call me Mama Dog.
Mama
Dog. So where we live in the unincorporated community of Lincoln Acres, and we are right at the county line with the city of National City. And Orange Street is a designated evacuation route as well as Shelby Drive. So my question is last year someone tried to develop a lot that is in the city of National City, and they were asking for several variances for the entrances on Orange Street. But the problem that I foresaw, and my big argument was against, with the city and trying to get this project shut down, is that Orange Street is a designated evacuation route. Where our area is, we have a liquefaction rating, I think, as a level 3. So I guess basically my question is the San Diego County, the emergency operation plan, or what this is, do the 18 cities have to comply with what the county says?
That's a great question. And just, going into the March public comment period, we present this county plan, the changes that have been made, including the feedback from the community, to the 18 cities. That will be also forthcoming in March, and there'll be a presentation with each of the city's emergency management offices to ensure that our plan is in alignment with their plans. So there's more to come on that, but that is a great question, but it's obviously our goal is to ensure we are in alignment, that we are supporting or supplementing their plans.
Robert, did you have another question?
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I did. I appreciate it. I know I kind of just jump in there, but it comes to me and I'm like, oh, I gotta ask this. So I hear a lot of reaction to an event, and I was wondering, because I mentioned the border fire, is there also the consideration of attack, right? Preemptive, to stop a event from happening. And so we can, instead of reacting to every situation, we can make the residents feel safe and ensuring them that we're handling it. And is that like a first attack, like in the scheduling of the emergency, or where does that line up on the emergency?
Great question, Robert. And are you speaking more around like hazard mitigation?
Right, yeah, because fire is different than an explosion of a battery, or they're all different. So, I tried to use tsunami, but I don't think it's very common. But you kind of see where I'm going. There's different things that can be prevented depending on the engagement of the county on the forefront than the reactionary planning that we're doing to mitigate the problem as it already happened.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as you may know, the county has a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan that goes through a 5-year update. And it actually has, that 5-year update is actually started now, where we look at all of the hazards within the county, within the cities, within the region, and then we look at ways to reduce the risk and identify specific mitigation actions. So that planning process is in progress, and there will be an upcoming public workshop to learn more about it. So I encourage you to participate in that, and we can share that information with you. Thank you, Sophia. We put the link to the Engage page for that plan. And the public workshop is in February, and the registration information is on the page. February is next couple days. Really great feedback. Thank you. Thank you very much. And just again, as a reminder, there will be a final draft public comment period in March, and there'll be another opportunity to see how this feedback, these recommendations will be shaping the plan update. Okay, any other questions and discussion?
Nick, we do have one more question, but I think
Yeah.
it might be for another participant that's chimed in. I see Raji was asking about the hesitation with using emergency evac chairs. So I think this question might be for some of the folks who are sharing out their personal experiences. So I'll pause and see if anybody wanted to just share quickly on their experience and if they have any thoughts on this question from Raji. Feel free to come off mute and share your experience.
Yeah, I'll bring it up because I'm the one that mentioned it. So it was not my hesitation. When I worked at the college, we practiced once or twice a year on it, but it was large properties for senior housing in particular. And it was more than one at that summit. And so they were told by the owner or the management of the facility that the employees on site were not to use those stair chairs because of the liability. And so that's where so they were worried about somebody getting injured during an evacuation and their employees helping people down those stairs with the stair chairs. So that's when I pointed out your liability is going to be bigger if you knowingly leave people behind that need assistance. And so that's what they're mentioning was the property owner and the management companies did not want the employees using the stair chairs.
Thanks, Teresa. Again, this is Raji. I work at St. Isidro Health. We have them in all of our multi-level facilities. And I admit, like they're not something that you can just pull out and operate. Those things are whole transformers. And that's why we actually have like a training plan and stuff like that. You know, we have subject matter experts at each one of those locations. And, you know, we actively train the staff there to be able to use it, you know, ahead of time. So when they need it, you know, it's available for them.
And you know, we talked about, and I mentioned earlier about not relying on your neighbor. And we talk about that in the rural community because I live in a rural community, have for most of my life. And I'm a native San Diegan, certainly not a spring chicken, but we talk about helping neighbors. But at the end of the day, if your neighbor's gone, what's your backup source to help you, right? You should have 3 people deep that can help you evacuate because it can take a while. And when there's a large scale disaster, the bulk of the responders may be going to where the more heavily populated areas are. So you have to plan for that if you're living in the rural community. But just so, yes, neighbor helping neighbor, but on those large scale buildings, they should be training their employees to help people evacuate because they're responsible for who's living in their building. I used to own rental properties, and so I know that there's liability, but they need to be responsible as well.
Thank you both for providing that. Hearing both of your experiences and concerns is going to be really helpful for us to contextualize and integrate these concerns into everything we do. So we have that whole community approach, and no one gets left out. So thank you both for sharing.
Robert Johnson?
I just, you know, I don't want this question to get left off. You know, I cover other meetings, so I know them a little bit better than I know you guys. So excuse me if I'm going to just ask this maybe a couple minutes before. But for the audience that's watching online, is there more meetings coming up that they can engage in topics like this?
Yes, thank you. Beyond this plan, you know, as I mentioned, there's the hazard mitigation plan update process. So that'll be another opportunity to look at emergency management from the hazard mitigation side. So that I think that'll be another great opportunity for everyone to participate in, because as you may know, that plan actually informs the emergency operations plan. It drives what are our priorities by understanding what are the risks, what are the hazards. So that is one upcoming opportunity. And then beyond, once this plan goes through the Board of Supervisors for final adoption, there will be a training schedule to be sort of socializing the plan and the changes that have been made. Hi, Teresa.
Hey, Nick, sorry.
Yeah, no.
As we're talking about preparedness and helping neighbors, all that kind of stuff, I don't know if everybody on this meeting is aware that the San Diego County Fire Community Emergency Response Team, which serves the rural communities, has an extensive community preparedness outreach program that we do. You're welcome to join us at any one of our events. We don't go to the city. That's a different CERT program. We have been posting our events on 211 on their events calendar. You can go to County Fire, but we do a lot of emergency preparedness training for people with access and functional needs, all kinds of priority populations, as well as the general public. So if you want to email me and get our training calendar for 2026, it's not completely full, but we're packed scheduling through December already. So we're happy to invite people to attend those trainings and feel better prepared and add whatever input they have that can help us be better in our presentations.
Thank you, Teresa, for sharing those resources. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. This has been really great to hear the different the feedback and comments. We will be capturing this in the meeting summary and for consideration in the plan update as well. So we'll move on to the next steps. So again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We will be posting this meeting recording and summary on the Engage San Diego project website. You can access the Engage San Diego website here on the slide, and then there's also a QR code. We will also put the direct link in the chat to the emergency operations planning process, and we anticipate the final draft will be available for public comment in March of this year. And the final draft will be posted on our website and it will be shared with the community. Go to the next slide, please. So once again, thank you everyone for your participation tonight. We really do appreciate it. Again, this is a collaborative effort with the community to ensure that this plan reflects community priorities and that you feel that you've been heard. And so this concludes the meeting this evening, and more to follow soon with the March public comment period. I will be ending the recording now.